back to A Therapist, the Buddhist, and You, brought to you by the Recovery Collective in Annapolis, Maryland. We're doing part 2 of our, I guess, 2-part series, all when it comes to how people set themselves up for cravings and the control that they actually do have to hopefully prevent this obsession, this satiation, this desire to use, and how to avoid it. And then if you have these cravings, how to minimize and reduce these cravings. So, per usual, we're brought to you by the Recovery Collective in Annapolis, Maryland. There's a link in the episode notes. I encourage you guys to check it out, just like we have this awesome content with podcasts. Just about every specialty page has articles and blogs that are written by us, including Zal with a bunch of his meditation focused and recovery and life coaching pages. So feel free to check out if you want some good reading. Check out all the stuff that Zal's a really good writer, as you can imagine. He is our MVP. So I'm going to streak saying that, Zal.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
I don't dislike it. But yeah, it's a fitting topic, so let's dive right into it.
It's a time of year. It's a holiday season and can be a very triggering period for people in recovery. So whether you're someone in recovery yourself, a loved one, you're welcome to listen, and you can certainly find these 2 episodes valuable. Get ready for an insightful journey as we uncover the psychological triggers and social dynamics that play a real crucial role in shaping irresistible cravings. Whether you're on a quest for personal wellness or simply intrigued by the complexities of human behavior when it comes to addiction, this episode is tailor-made for you. So let's unravel the layers of cravings and discover the keys of mastering them. Here we go. We knocked out the physiological aspects, so let's jump right into the psychological. And when I say psychological, I simplify it by saying mental and emotional, how people think and how people feel. So there's some ways we set ourselves up for that. Have you ever heard this saying, white knuckling? Zal?
Yeah.
When you hear people say that, man, he's white knuckling his recovery, what does that mean?
Yeah, flexing your muscle to do it self-will way, very willfully, relying on your own limited powers. Absolutely.
Think about the visualization that someone has a craving. And what sometimes happens for people is the best and worst thing happens. They have a craving, they don't say anything, and they get through it. Well, that's the best thing. Nothing happened. But it could turn into the worst thing. And what I mean by that is, that craving might have been 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, and they got through it. It was a little bit more than a fleeting thought. Then guess what happens? Another craving happens, and it might be a little stronger and a little longer. And then no one says anything to anyone, so it's a little more intense. And then the best and worst thing happens. Nothing happened. But what tends to happen with addiction? Well, maybe the next time or the second or third craving after that, it's a little bit more intense and a little stronger. Then people all of a sudden begin to hold into their couch or their armchairs, and they're squeezing on for dear life, and you can see the whites of their knuckles. Mm-hmm. So this is opposite of what 12 steps say. If you're getting through a craving by yourself, you're saying you can manage this craving, that you are not powerless over this craving. And that might be true the first 7th, 10th, 15th time. But if you continue to hold on and do it yourself and keep it to yourself, you're setting yourself up for really stronger cravings, more cravings, the opposite of AA's or 12-step version of powerlessness and unmanageability.
Yeah, it's a muscle either way. The more I give into it or the more I don't, like that, the willingness part is also a muscle that I let it go. I get better next time. Mm-hmm. Same is true for craving that, this might not be that strong this time, but if I power through it without asking for any help from anything, it kicks in next time. Yeah. And it's stronger, because it really weakens our will, weakens our, I don't know if will is the right word, like our personal power.
Self-will or ego, or to me, the cringiest thing that I would hear as a addiction counselor in a treatment facilities when someone would say, I'm good. I got this. Now, confidence is good. But I often would give people the perspective, well, that's certainly a perspective, but I've got years and over a decade sobriety. I don't know if I'm going to be good. I don't know if I got this left to my own devices. Another psychological or piece is that ego, that unhealthy version, right? Good pride is a good thing, but having ego in terms of feeding this, it could be the level of omnipotence. And omnipotence refers to the quality or state of being of being all-powerful or having unlimited power, perceived self-control. It's a reduced perception of risk.
That sounds amazing for an alcoholic.
It sounds like self-will run riot.
Yeah.
It sounds like the opposite of using a support network for cravings. It sounds the opposite of identifying your character defects and your insecurities. It sounds like the opposite, that like, yeah, I can white knuckle through this and hold on and I'll be okay. And you're fine until you aren't. But you see how that's a way of setting yourself up, not just for a craving, stronger cravings, but a relapse.
Mm-hmm.
There's an analogy that your addiction is in the parking lot doing push-ups. And if you use that visualization, that analogy, that, hey, no matter how strong you think you are, if you have this reduced perception of risk, this perceived self-control, that eventually it's going to be stronger than you. So it's not just about self-will. If it was just self-will, people have all the desire in the world, but then somehow people relapse. People have all the desire in the world, they want to do it for their children, but that's not enough to keep them sober. People have all the desire not to pick up a drink or drug, and then they see me and they go, I don't know how it happened. And then we break down the anatomy of a relapse and we identify patterns that how they set themselves up for a craving. And this thought and this behavior and this emotion is one way that people do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awareness can be so powerful. You know, I always think about the power of mindfulness or the power of meditation or understanding the nature of your mind helps you to be part of the process before it's too late, you know. Yeah. So like sometimes we will find ourselves in a place of very strong craving, but like we do not get there all of a sudden. There's a process that happens. Meditation, mindfulness, it really helps to like pay attention, because mindfulness analogy, like a gatekeeper. So if there is like a really big city, if there's a gatekeeper and there's some rivalry cities, like armies around it. So there are like some spies coming in, and the role of the gatekeeper is to keep an eye on people who's coming in and who's going out. So mindfulness is like that too, right? When we're trying to minimize the craving, like, oh, is this going to help me with my sobriety, or is it going to create more craving? And then discerning the difference. You know, it's not like, oh yeah, I'm free for all. Anything can come in, you know, it's not like that, but being very mindful and systematic about what am I letting things into my life and what I'm not. Yeah.
I love this story or this analogy of it's not about willpower. And I give the example of X-Lax pills. You know what they are? So X-Lax pills you can buy at your local grocery store or Rite Aid or CVS. And basically, it gives you a bowel movement. It gives you the diarrhea, the shits. So if you take an X-Lax, you get the runs.
It's like a metformin?
Okay? Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Yeah.
But
wait, Murex. Is that?
Yeah, more of that.
Yeah. That's the wrong word.
So, and I say this person that says, I'm good, I got this, when I was an addiction counselor in treatment, and even though they may have had previously failed attempts of being good, and they can have all the desire and the willpower in the world, and their past experiences, it says, no, I don't want to use this time, I'm not going to. If it was just that, this thing wouldn't be a pandemic. Once again, listen to episode 3 and 4 if you want to understand the brain chemistry and how it works medically and medical model and the 12-step model, they go very parallel, why it's not just a self-will thing. But this person that is on self-will, I say, okay, you have all the desire in the world not to crap your pants. So you take all those capsules of X-Lax pills or liquid, and I don't care how much desire or willpower you have not to shit your pants. If you take those X-Lax pills, you're going to shit your pants.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about just desire or will. Your sphincter's going to pucker up and it's going to let loose. Sorry for the graphicness. But my point being, if it was just about desire and willpower, there's a chemical brain change in the people's brain, and you've induced it enough where there's an obsession of the mind, an allergy of the body, and you might have the willpower for that first craving, that second craving, that third craving. But eventually, if you rely on just willpower alone and not treatment or support or spirituality or help, that's why one of the big reasons people relapse.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'll give another psychological example. Denial. Denial is a beautiful coping skill. It is wonderful. As a therapist, I have people all the time that don't have any substance abuse issues, but they have a lot of denial. It's beautiful because denial refers to the psychological process by which individuals refuse to accept or acknowledge the reality of a situation or condition. So typically because it is emotionally distressing. So in other words, not only there's not an issue, denial saying, oh, this doesn't exist. So there's nothing to even stress about. So denial is just beautiful. It works very well for people. It's a protective factor. And if I don't have to acknowledge the reality of the situation, then what do I have to stress about? It's a beautiful coping skill, not a healthy one, because you're not dealing with the situation or the condition. But boy, people are good at it.
Yeah. You use the word conditioning, That's a very Buddhist term. Because there is a conditioning going on for everything that comes into existence. And the thing about denial is that it is a tool, like you said, right? It's my ability to ignore things that I don't want to look at, as if they don't exist. So that is a mechanism that our mind uses to find that ease and comfort, or that like limited or personal reality creating. But it takes so much energy to keep constructing that, right?
It's my favorite acronym. Don't even know I am lying. Is my favorite acronym. It's such a great example of this doesn't exist. I don't even know that I'm not being transparent or honest because it doesn't exist. I'm preventing to even look at it. This is true for family members of addicts and alcoholics. This is true of someone in active addiction or someone that's struggling to make a change that might be necessary for health and growth and things like that. So it's a go-to for a lot of people. But hey, this is how you can set yourself up for a craving. If something doesn't exist, then it's not an issue. If it's not an issue, then it's not a problem. If it's not a problem, then what do I have to deal with it? And then all of a sudden you're getting cravings out of nowhere. And when people say, I don't know where this craving come from, I don't know how I relapsed, there's denial at first until we break it down, and then they see, oh, they see it now. Mm-hmm. So we break through that denial and a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of going back to that example of the pills that you take that you cannot go against, that you're going to go have a bowel movement anyway, despite your desire.
Oh, yeah, I think said that.
Yeah, you said that. Because, I feel like that's the crack in the denial is a good beginning, that to see that it's an unfair fight. Yeah. It's not worth fighting. I feel like that's the beauty of recovery. That, I mean, especially in the 12 step, when you work the first step, is admitting that this is a really big beast that I will never win. Yeah. So let me just start from there. It's an unfair fight, And I feel like that can really crack some denial.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. So let's do the next one. Let's crack through that denial. Pink cloud. Where does your mind go with how can a pink cloud set someone up for a craving? And maybe you can explain a little bit what your perspective of a pink cloud is.
Yeah, I mean, that's a term that I've never heard of before recovery. Mm-hmm. So thinking about it now, I mean, I guess it has some poetic meaning to it, like pink cloud, but it's almost like a fantasy land that things are you're just this newfound self and nothing can go wrong. Like, I'm just on this pink cloud, like things are great. I'm in this fictional character, almost to the grandiose thinking as well that, nothing can hurt me. Yeah. I'm just this newfound recover self. I found God,
Things are great. Why would I not want to be sober?
Right.
I'm never letting go of this. This is almost like a natural high, euphoric high. This is, man, I love sobriety. So in some ways I tell people, if you got a pink cloud, rock it, ride it, enjoy it. That's not the unhealthy part of potentially being on a pink cloud. If all of a sudden you feel good in your sobriety to the level of some euphoria, great. What a gift. You've been given the gift of feel good. To me, that's not the issue. The issue with potentially being on a pink cloud, it's one thing to stay sober when things are going good. But you can pop or all of a sudden that cloud goes away and life happens. That's when you need to work a recovery program. And sometimes when people are on that riding high, there's not a lot of hard stuff going on. But when all of a sudden the mood goes down or life happens, stressors happen, and then all of a sudden they feel blindsided. And wait a minute, the things that got you to that pink cloud and the things that you're doing good, you can and should still do when you're not riding that pink cloud, that euphoric feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen that a lot. I mean, it probably comes from a good intention place that, maybe that person is definitely honest in that moment, but having a fellowship really helps, especially people who breaks you out of that little bubble.
Yeah.
But also makes me think about, I guess this is more like a general theme, about pink cloud and also just recovery in general. I want to kind of relate that with meditation practice is that maybe I've already shared in our Buddhist tradition, there's two main branch of meditation. One is concentration-based samadhi, and then the other is insight-based or vipassana. The example, I don't know if that's the case in this country, but back in Burma, the roads are messy. But you'll be driving in the dark at night and you see something on the road and it's not clear whether it's a rope or a snake, So the thing about pink cloud and the thing about clarity and insight and concentration is that I can concentrate on something and pretend that doesn't exist. It doesn't scare me. But if I'm looking at it, I'm confused. Is it a snake or a rope? So I think recovery process is like that too. A pink cloud can be like a concentration method. Let me just focus on all these things that I'm excited about, not pretend that there is no beast of addiction that's got the worst in me. But the thing about the clarity, the thing about recovery for me too is about, let me find out what it is. Yeah. And then once I find out what it is, that it is a rope or it is a snake, whatever it is, once I see things clearly, I know what to do. I feel like that's the process of recovery and dealing with cravings as well.
We're in the holiday season, got my relapse prevention group, and every once in a while I got people feeling really good. It's a great time to be sober. And then you hear that they could be going back home for the holidays, and where they would go with the family is, well, they're all using. Well, I'm glad you feel good about it, but let's do a hypothetical. What if you don't feel good about it? Let's allow yourself to see, is that a snake? Where's this road going? Mm-hmm. And being able to go, well, I don't think I am because I feel good now. Okay, let's look at the whole situation for what it is. Oh, your cousins, your aunts and uncles are all using your drug of choice and you call grandma's house a drug den. Maybe you shouldn't feel so great about it. Not to pop your cloud there, but let's get into reality and let's do some hypotheticals here. So that way you're not I don't know how this happened. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm seeing a little bit of parallel between denial and pink cloud too, right?
Oh yeah. And this is relating to how we think and feel, the psychological and there's a reason why this rational logic reason is not really proactive. Check episode 3 and 4. But hey, we can, with treatment and support, we can get ahead of this so that way we don't have cravings. Yeah. Good. Resentments.
That's a good one.
Oh, yeah. Resentments set ourselves up for cravings? How so, Zol?
Well, it is the number one offender, is what it says in the 12-step literature.
Okay.
It's, I guess the wording they use is some kind of a dubious luxury, something like that.
For normal men and women, yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, because, resentment really creates that sense of unfairness, right? It's not fair, which creates the entitlement to, let me just do it my way now. It's not fair. And I guess, resentment is not limited to like anger or negative thought. Like in my experience, it's something that keeps my attention over and over again. It becomes so exhausting. I cannot get out of my head. So,
yeah, it's what's going over and over in our head is, there's the thought, but there's also the emotion associated with. And it can be anger, but it's usually some refeeling some type of discomfort or frustration or irritation, something that's not fair, if you will. That's one example. And for someone that abuses substances to the level of obsession, if I continue to re-feel, which is what resentment means, re-feel, sentir, feel, a discomfort and anger and irritation, well, I don't want to continue to re-feel this, and either I can change them or I can change this feeling by relapse. So what a great kind of red flag awareness of going, wait a minute, what am I actually feeling? Is it an anger? Is it a resentment? Is it a frustration? Is it something that's not fair? That then we say, I'm excellent at justifiable resentments. I shouldn't feel this way because that person did it. And a lot of people go, you're right. That is not fair. Well, guess what? That's pretty dubious too, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even that one, even the justifiable resentments, because guess what? I'm re-feeling a discomfort. And for days, weeks, months, years, decades, when I felt a discomfort, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, I knew how to get rid of that discomfort. So now that I'm sober, that resentment, if I don't get rid of it in a healthy way and I re-feel this discomfort, eventually an alcoholic or an addict is going to drink or drug. The only difference between an addict alcoholic and a non-addict alcoholic, other people can cope with their resentments in a whole bunch of toxic ways. They can go to work, they can obsess about stuff, they can lust, they can get lost in infidelity, they can do anger and fighting and other obsessions. But for an addict and alcoholic, eventually those things won't be good enough either, and then they'll eventually pick up a drink or drug. That's the only difference. Mm-hmm. Other people can deal with resentments in unhealthy ways too. But for an addict and alcoholic, they will eventually go to substances. Only difference.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also, I guess, having that concept, words like resentment, for people who are new to recovery is very helpful in terms of being able to name the feeling. Because addiction is also described as like an abnormal reaction to things, right? Yeah. Something would make me angry, and it's okay to be angry, but like I don't stop there as an addict. I make it bigger than it is, or I suppress it, so there is no appropriate reaction. Yeah. But like having these vocabularies really help. Like, I guess the tool is like naming the feeling. When we're able to name the feeling, it loses its power. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm like, I don't feel good. And then eventually I'm like, oh, let me just change how I feel,
Justification or denial or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So these things can compound on each other. These ways that we set ourselves up for cravings or unhealthy coping skills we're seeing can compound. Let's go back to part 1. We talked about HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. So we often associate resentments with irritation or a level of anger. So we feel a discomfort, anger, eventually we don't want to feel angry anymore, and we either project it out on the other person in selfishness, or we take the poison through, expect the other one to get sick. So we got hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Well, if we're lonely, we isolate. If we isolate, well, we can do that in a very unhealthy way. Addiction loves isolation because then it's just me and you, baby. And if it's just, it's a love-hate relationship with drugs and alcohol was when it got me alone is exactly what I wanted. It was the thing that I hated the most too. It was always there for me, even though I know it would abuse me back. So that that isolation affected my emotions, my thoughts, and it's dangerous because then I get the ego, I get the denial, I get all these other things when I'm lonely because I'm left to my own devices. And tired, oh, that's a huge one. When I'm tired, I'm not thinking straight, and I think we'll eventually get a sleep expert just to talk about all things collective solution to health and wellness when it comes to sleep and how that is rejuvenating, but what sleep actually does for us in a healthy way. But when we're tired, it affects everything else, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Going back to that loneliness thing,
Yeah.
I mean, I laugh at it now, but it's kind of really messed up when I was living in my addiction. So a good friend of mine who has long-term sobriety said something along those lines about loneliness is that we alcoholics or addicts try to solve our loneliness problem by isolating. And it's just like right on point, you know.
Oh,
I feel lonely. Let me just isolate.
that just sounds logical.
Right?
Yeah. And people with depression can relate to this. The one thing when we're this level of depression is I don't want to spend the little energy I have around other people. But I often say one of the best treatments for depression is action. The one thing we don't want to do is use energy, get around people, and change that kind of unhealthy way to cope with depression. So people with depression can relate to just that loneliness when, oh, let me hole up, which is why support, 12-step meetings, sober houses, treatment, support groups, relapse prevention groups are all a huge piece to fight that unhealthy isolation.
Yeah. And then it goes back to that seeing things as they are, you know, or labeling. Because as an alcoholic and an addict, I'm either a Superman or I'm the worst person ever, you know? So like, I feel tired. Like, I'm not supposed to feel tired. Lonely? No, I'm not lonely. Angry? I'm never angry, you know? Like, I'm this like superhuman. Or seeing things as they are really help that, okay, yeah, I'm tired, so I need to take a nap. Or I'm hungry, I haven't eaten anything. And then it makes us to like, take action right away.
Yeah, it's big. Good. So we've done the psychological piece, how we think and feel. Let's jump to social. Social is, for us, everyday life. This is the people, places, and things. We can set ourselves up for cravings in this way too. Touched upon this and near beers. All of a sudden people stop drinking and then, well, this is what I knew. I'm not going to drink alcohol, but I'll do the non-alcoholic beers. Might be a no-brainer for some, but maybe not for others. Why is that dangerous for an alcoholic to drink non-alcoholic beers? Hey listeners, we've got something extraordinary to share, a chance to reshape your journey no matter where you are. You're familiar with Zalmal's insights on our podcast, but there's more. Through the Recovery Collective, he offers life, mindfulness, recovery coaching, and meditation groups guiding you toward a fulfilled and mindful existence, no matter your location. Zal's journey from a Burmese Buddhist novice to a skilled practitioner equips him with timeless wisdom and contemporary strategies. Whether you're navigating life's shifts, seeking clarity, or pursuing self-awareness, Zal's coaching serves as a compass guiding you toward success. The best part? Zal's approach centers on your growth and empowerment. He equips you with tools to tap into your inner strengths for continuous evolution no matter where you are. Ready to take that next step in your personal growth journey? Connect with Zalmal and the Recovery Collective at 240-813-8135 from anywhere in the world. Investigating in your journey reaps immeasurable rewards. Let Zalmal guide you toward resilience, clarity, and empowerment no matter where life finds you. Now, let's transition back into our conversation. Stay tuned, stay curious, and keep your journey growing.
I mean, we're in that place of social, but it's still psychological, I feel like, right? Like,
And physical.
and physical. Yeah.
You're getting the sense, you're getting the taste.
Mm.
Psychologically, you're doing everything you did when you used.
And then you're still probably associating with people who you used to drink with too.
Yeah. Like we said, no other drug do you do not to get the drug effect. So why would we think that's okay to try to do that with alcohol? It's crazy. Who makes those non-alcoholic drinks? The beer companies.
Right.
They know exactly. Oh, this is for the designated driver. Yeah, sure it is. And there's been a huge uptick over the past couple of years in these, Dos Equis and these not St. Pauli, all these non-alcoholic beers yeah, it's a great marketing tool, but for an alcoholic or an addict, often the pattern is, okay, I'm getting the taste, or at least close enough. They've gotten a lot better over the past 15 years when it comes to taste. A lot better.
Mm.
Oh, I'm getting the taste. Oh, I'm doing the same routine, the conditioning, like you said earlier, that I did before. Okay, well, I got a stressful day, or I just got done doing work in the yard, whatever it is. All of a sudden, I drank 2 socially. Well, then there's 3, then there's 5. Then people are drinking a 6-pack of non-alcoholic beers, but that's not getting what? The euphoric feeling. So eventually it doesn't work.
Mm.
And then what do people do? So it's just like, it's like the alcoholic mouthwash. Okay, the intention wasn't to drink it socially, but how much alcohol does it take? I don't know. But you're doing everything but getting the consumption, and there is a small percentage in most of them. They're getting better scientifically to not have any percentage, but it's less than a percent for most of them. But I don't know how much alcohol it takes for it to release the beast. But you're doing every other sense anyway. So
Yeah. I mean, from the point of view of recovery journey too, right? If I'm still doing that, like my growth is still being hindered,
yeah,
right? It's my still old way of thinking
no,
because
it's
recovery is
cool.
all about change.
Before I go on a run, I'm just gonna snort a Tic Tac line. I'm gonna do pixie sticks like I did in middle school. Nope, I'm just gonna do an IV of brown water, not for hydration, liquid IV. No, I just want to, I miss it.
Mm.
No, that sounds absurd. But socially, non-alcoholic beers are acceptable.
Mm.
It's interesting.
Yeah. People, places, and things.
If you hang out with shit, you're going to smell like shit. So that's a harsh way of saying if you hang around people that are using constantly, you very well might be using soon.
Mm.
If you smell it, you might do it. If you keep hanging out in a barber shop, you eventually might get your hair cut. If you keep hanging around the people that the common denominator is using, what makes you think that you would have the willpower not to use eventually?
Mm.
The proximity principle that I talk about.
Yeah, you definitely are who you surround yourself with.
Mm-hmm.
But also that's why recovery process is so powerful and internal, right? I got to be clear about what I want.
Yeah.
But if I'm just hanging around without knowing what I want in a wrong crowd, I'm just going to go along with the flow with that crowd, you know?
Ah, man, not me. I won't do that. Some of you guys know that I got sober at 20 years old, and I had a trouble relating to my family. And so much so that I tried to look at earlobes and stuff like that and go, okay, am I adopted? That would make more sense to me. I felt closer to my quote unquote, air quote, friends than I did my family. Had the felony charge, went to treatment, took the suggestions. I hung around 8 to 15 people on a regular basis. They know I got the felony charge, went to treatment with the support of my family and support and therapists and sponsor. They said, well, maybe now's not the time to hang around those people. And we came to the conclusion, I talked to them all before I went into treatment. We love you, man. We're here for you. Totally get it. We love you. We support you. All my old using friends. And then it was time for me to talk to them after treatment. And part of it was hey, I had a bunch of realizations in treatment. The common denominator was drugs and alcohol. I don't want to put myself in that situation because I don't want to be tempted. Whether you tempt me or not, I don't want to tempt myself. Whether you do so, peer pressure or not, I just can't hang out with you. So called 10, 15 of these people, all of them that I talked to beforehand. We love you, man. We're here for you. Hey, do you mind coming over to my house to talk with me and my parents about what I'm doing? Out of those 10 or 15 people, do you know how many showed up? 3. My girlfriend's sister, and my best friend.
Mm.
I was rocked. That hurt me more and was harder than not picking up a drink or drug, because my social life at 18, 19, 20 was my life, and my life was using with them. And I thought it was like my family, but it was a friendship of convenience. Yeah. It was, hey, you're great and all, but if this common denominator wasn't there, then really, what is this love? Is this family? So that was hard for me, but socially for me not to use, I had to set up conditions, and I totally understand it was hard for me to do. And I was shocked that everyone but 3 understood that I couldn't hang out with them because I didn't want to kill myself. And I don't want to do more time for a felony charge that I thought I was already going to do. So I wasn't willing to risk my butt in possibly jail and, killing myself. That was hard. But this happens for a lot of people. I don't care if you're 60, 70, 80, if you're in your mid 30s or 40s, or you're a teenager or younger. This social aspect is really challenging, whether it's job requirements, friends, family. This is tough.
Yeah, there's always some kind of change going on, transitioning to something else. But also like trusting something too, right? Like it's been always true in my life about, that cliche of one door closes, like many other doors open. Yeah. Sometimes not right away, but I gotta be patient.
Not when we want it to, but
right.
when it's supposed to. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a good point that you're making about being real about what's going to come up, because change is going to happen, whether I like it or not. And that can be a trigger.
And this is so true right now during holiday season. I really don't want to go to grandma's house because cousin, aunt, uncle are using, and I'm not going to be comfortable. And what's the reason people still go? Whether there's an obligation, a sense of guilt or shame, and then people are willing to risk their sobriety because of those things and those old family dynamics, as opposed to whether family members understand it or not. And this is true for weddings, this is true for a lot of things. How do you put your recovery first, and how do you minimize risk factors and go, I don't want to set myself up for being uncomfortable or set myself up for cravings or relapse. So whether loved ones or family members or friends understand or not, well, part of this social change is, okay, who does understand?
Yeah, that's empowering to realize or act as if of like having choices, right? Like being in addiction also meant for me that no choice. I was like, this is the only choice that I have. If I don't choose it, I mean nothing, Yeah. But recovery process really empower us to like, okay, that's not the only choice, I can make choices.
And part of this is accountability and responsibility, removing risk for cravings. You trained your loved ones, your family members, your friends to either be okay or support your active use. And now to expect that your family members, friends, loved ones are now going to be healthy enough to go, I'm not using, we're not going to do it. That's a huge transition shift. So whether the family members and friends are healthy or not, wait a minute, we created part of this dynamic. And now we're going, we need to be the change. we can control this with healthier support, because to expect our family members and friends to understand this, well, no, we help create this dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good. Now, let's reduce these cravings if you got them, huh?
Yeah. How do we do that?
Good. This is important, obviously. So whether you have it or you're partially responsible for the craving, which I really think it's important to look at when it comes to accountability and making these changes, let's reduce the cravings. I call it the 3 R's. So the first R when you have a craving is to recognize it. One way to do this is you get to self-diagnose. Now, you don't need a doctor, a therapist, psychiatrist, a physician. When you've got a craving, one or two things happen. An active use and early recovery, it can be, man, I got a craving, let me go use, and it becomes impulsive. When you have a craving, and if the first, second, or third thing you go is, shit, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an addict, that different thought process can be enough from feeding the obsession, the impulsivity, to you just self-diagnosed. I'm an addict. I'm powerless. I'm powerless over that thought, that first emotion. So if you self-diagnose and recognize it, you can change that pattern as opposed to fuel the impulsivity and the obsession. So you recognize it, you self-diagnose. Then when you recognize it, that second, third, fourth, fifth thought and behavior can be reduce it. What are some ways that we reduce cravings? Mindfulness meditation. You got any feedback on how that can help?
Yeah. Becoming more present in the moment, it's always good to use the senses, like naming the things that I see, naming the things that I smell, naming the sounds that I hear, naming the things that I can touch, when I become physically present with the senses, that can reduce, again, the impulsivity and the compulsiveness goes into this hooking that, oh yeah, this is all I can think about.
Yeah.
But when we start practicing some grounding exercises, that gets reduced.
It's self-awareness of the diagnosis, now self-awareness on the examples that's all just gave. Ability to observe cravings can be a form of doing it, right? So if this is early on and not full-blown obsession mode, I think mindfulness and meditation are a wonderful skill set. Here's a big thing. When people were in treatment and they just had a craving, run up and down the steps, do 30 push-ups, do 50 sit-ups, because when you do exercise, we release those feel-good things. So it's a spike, right? You release some endorphins. It's valuable. And getting in the habit of engaging in regular physical activity, whether it's jogging, walking, swimming, yoga, lifting weights. Exercise not only improves physical health, but also enhances mood, reduces stress. It provides a natural outlet for tension and cravings. So you've got I need to get this adrenaline up and just need a release for this intense craving. Where I worked, we had a pool. I said, do 30 push-ups, run up and down the steps 5, and then jump in the pool. All right? It released all kinds of stuff, and it can help. But so can long-term regular exercise. We talked about healthy nutrition. You are what you eat and how you eat. So there's the good nutrition that can prevent that roller coaster spikes and can also affect mood. But this is an old school thing. You stick a mouthful of peanut butter, and you've got a mouthful of peanut butter, are you really going to want to use? Hey, the spike of sugar is better than the spike of getting high. So even though it's not quote unquote healthy, I'd rather people get a sugar spike. These are, whether it's short-term or long-term things, these are things can be beneficial, right? Mm-hmm. Adequate sleep. We'll eventually do a whole episode on just health and sleep, but my goodness, it reduces stress. It just regulates, it's healing for your brain. It helps with resilience. It just helps in every single way, right? Mm. Therapy, counseling. I can tell you how many people that when you have a craving, they come to my office and they're like, their legs shaking and they're They're back and forth. They're head bobbing. They're looking down. Their hands are on the shoulders. And I talk to them for 15 minutes. It could be directly about the cravings or about anything. And then about usually 10 to 12 to 18 minutes in, I go, hey, have you noticed anything? Their bodies relax. They're not obsessing. They got outside of themselves and talked to another human being. So whether it's a therapist, whether it's a sponsor, whether it's a healthy support, whether it's someone that you know is that you live with, you name it, that's a huge help.
Mm. Yeah, that's powerful. Getting out of your own thoughts.
So we just named a few of ways to reduce it. And the last one is, and maybe we'll do even more episodes on some different versions of this. We got recognize, reduce, and lastly, and surely not least, the last R is relocate. If everything you're doing is still there, get the heck out of the way where you have the craving. That could be the triggering spot where you have the craving. I'll give you an example. So I worked with, I had my boss, and we worked at a treatment facility, and he had, I think, 7 more years than I did. And I knocked on his door, and he opened his door, and he just had that look in his eye. And I said, "Are you okay, dude?" And he said, "No, I'm not." I said, "Oh." And like, me being an addict, and I was like, "Oh, he's struggling." And his trigger was an old friend, using friend, called him. He had multiple years of sobriety, and the conditions, and they say there's a lot of things that say with like PTSD, if 2 of the senses are triggered, it can really release a trauma response. I only think it takes 1 sense for cravings. It's probably true for PTSD too, but just talking on the phone, it just triggered cravings for him. Mm. So this is what he did. He tried to reduce it. He was reading the basic text. He was very fortunate. His best friend was the supervisor in the adolescent wing. He talked to his friend who's also in recovery. Past 15 minutes go by. He called his sponsor. He's still 30 minutes in. He still has his craving. And then he said, even though he was in a very safe place, a drug and alcohol inpatient treatment facility, he said, "I got to go. And what I know is not he had to go use. I still have this craving here. I need to relocate." All right, brother man, give a prayer for you. He was gone 20, 30 minutes. He came back. He was better. But isn't that unbelievable?
Yeah, that's very practical. You know, like a change of scene, even if it's short. Mm-hmm. That's what happens when I'm working from home and I go out for a walk. It can be a short walk. Mm-hmm. By the time I get back, I'm like a completely new person. Yep. There's something about energy, being trapped in a space.
I'll give you one more example about relocate. A guy in a relapse prevention group that he was on a bus, had to go to the city for something, and be the parole probation or something like that. And he realized he was just a few streets away from where he used to use. Instant craving. So he was 4 streets away. All of a sudden his heart started to beat faster and harder. 3 streets away, he started to salivate. 2 streets away, he started to sweat. Next thing you know, he's at the street. He white knuckles. He holds on. The bus goes 1 street away. He's able to exhale. 2 streets away, he said a prayer. 3 seats away, he goes, "I'm so glad." But you see what happened. He relocated from his bus route, and all of a sudden the craving started to diminish. So he processed that in the relapse prevention group. But those are 2 examples. I don't care where you're at. If all these other things aren't working, then relocate.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Well, what do you think?
These are all good stuff. Thank you, Luke.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for listening. Hopefully this was helpful. We've had, intensive outpatients play our episodes to their clients because it's been beneficial. So whether it's for you or other people, please like, comment, and most importantly, share, because collectively we can be a collective solution to all things health and wellness. So it is that holiday time, and it's crunch time for a lot of people, but there's a lot of things that we don't have control or power of. But hopefully this is an example of not just be mindful, but be proactive and minimize your risk factors. And there is some healthy controls that can help you through this time.
Yeah. Speaking about our podcast, a few more weeks and we've completed the whole year without missing any Mondays. Is that right?
That was some work for us, but we did it.
Do you think we can make it?
I think we're getting close. We're doing it. So
yeah. Luke. Yeah, this is great.
Absolutely. So closing the chapter on today's exploration into the intricacies of cravings, I find myself reflecting on really the importance of understanding how we set ourselves up for the challenges that recovery presents. As we delved in the biopsychosocial landscape of addiction, it did become clear that our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors intricately weave together, laying the groundwork for cravings that can either propel us towards a potential relapse or fortify our resilience. The journey through the biopsychosocial factors that contribute to cravings is not a mere academic exercise. It's a guidepost, illuminating the paths we tread and the choices we make. Whether it's neurochemical dance within our brains or the echoes of past experiences shaping our responses, every element plays a role in the intricate tapestry of recovery. You got more control in this perspective, and use it to your advantage with support. And thank you all for being here. My name's Luke.
This is Zal. Thank you.
See you next time.